Hey everyone, I would first like to thank Hyper Games Conference for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. I'm Sahand Malaei, team lead at Dropout Games. We at Dropout Games have been making hyper-casual games for the past 3 years. We've actually made more than 50 of them. We have enjoyed some success in this market. Our games have achieved more than a total of 30 million downloads globally, and so we've had some success in this market. But the reason why I'm talking to you today is because of a recent shift that we've have observed in the hyper-casual market, and I think that every game studio that exists in this market and is making hyper-casual games needs to be aware of this shift and possibly prepare for it. Now, as I told you, our games have had some success in the hyper-casual market, and we could have stayed in this market for, I think, a lot more time, but due to this shift that we've observed in the market, we have decided to focus all of our attention on making hybrid casual games, not hyper casual games. And you might be asking, why is that? Why, if you were successful building hyper casual games, why did you suddenly make a shift to hybrid casual games? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today, and I am actually going to give you 3 reasons why you should make the change from making hyper casual games to hybrid casual games, and on why, in a way, hybrid casual is the natural evolution of hyper casual games. And so, before I give you the 3 reasons, let's start with some definitions. If you don't know already, a hybrid casual game is basically a game with a hyper casual core, a very simple core, with layers of gameplay or meta, more complex layers of meta added on top of it. I think it all started when Habby came out with Archer. It was an insanely successful game, and basically it had a very simple core, but they had built a massive infrastructure of meta on top of it to monetize that hyper-casual core. And I think the first game to bring hyper-casual, to bring hybrid mechanics into hyper-casual was actually Farmland from Homa Games, and it kind of simplified the hybrid casual genre after Archer. I'm going to give you a lot more examples later on. And so I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you should make the shift from hyper casual to hybrid casual. And the first one is that the market is shifting. If you've been looking at the top charts recently, you've probably seen that fewer and fewer hyper-casual games are making their way into the top charts, and that is no accident. You see, and on the other hand, a lot more hybrid casual games are making their way into the top charts, and we believe that's not an accident. You know, and you don't see a lot of ultra casual games in the top charts anymore. You know, the form that most games on the top charts have today is that they have they have to add something to ultra casual to make it successful. You know, for example, recently we have seen games add idle mechanics to hyper-casual games, like Button Fever from I think Relic Games had idle mechanics added to their game, and that was unseen in hyper-casual. You have merge mechanics being added into hyper-casual games, like Merge and Fight from Homa Games, or most recently you have Survivor.io, which took the very simple core mechanics of Vampire Survivors, a PC game, a successful PC game, and added layers of meta and monetization on top of it, and it was hugely successful. Now, why is hyper-casual declining and hyper-casual climbing the charts? I think it basically comes down to two main reasons. The first one is that as a time moves on, because hyper-casual has a very low barrier of entry, a lot of developers and publishers have entered the game. And because of the competition, the cost to acquire new users by advertising has increased, and so it's not cheap anymore to acquire new users, and that is the lifeblood of hyper-casual games. You have to be able to acquire new users cheaply in order for your game to be profitable, because hyper-casual games have very low LTVs. Each individual user isn't worth a lot in terms of the revenue they're going to make for you. And so if you are not able to acquire new users cheaply, then your game is not going to be profitable, because each user is not worth that much. And so because of the growing competition, it just doesn't make sense for a lot of studios to make hyper-casual games anymore. It's much harder for hyper-casual games to get into the top charts because the costs have risen. The second reason why hyper-casual has declined, I think, has to do with a decision that Apple made a while back. A lot of people didn't think it would have such a big impact on the industry. And that decision was that Apple introduced app tracking transparency. What it was that Apple basically made it harder for advertisers to track their users, and so it's basically became more costly to advertise to users. In the past, advertisers could track their users with incredible accuracy, and advertising was very efficient. And one of the reasons that hyper-casual rose to prominence was exactly because of how efficient these advertisers had gotten. But now that Apple has made it harder and more costly for advertisers to acquire users for games, you just can't get the CPIs you used to get in the past. And one genre that was hit particularly hard by Apple's decision was, you guessed it, hyper-casual, because hyper-casual depends heavily upon being able to acquire new users cheaply, which wasn't possible anymore under Apple's new law. Hyper-casual declined because hyper-casual games became less profitable, because it became more costly to acquire new users. And so these were just observations. These were just the facts. We are seeing a shift in the market, and I'm not going to jump to any conclusions just yet. The second reason why you should move to hybrid casual, or should start making hybrid casual games, is that based on my experience with hyper casual publishers, I have begun to believe that hyper casual is the publisher's game, not the developer's game. You see, I think a publishing manager once told me illustrates this point perfectly. I'm not going to name the publisher, but what he said to me was that they were going to have a game jam, and what he likened their game jam to was that it was like throwing a piece of meat into a shark tank, and he was saying that like having a game jam for developers was like throwing a piece of meat in a tank full of sharks, and they just gave people a core idea, and different developers came up with different games based on that idea, and the publisher just sat there and waited for a hit game to come out of that pool of developers. And it was hard for me to accept at the point, but at the time. But I have come to believe in the end that hyper-casual is most profitable for the publishers. Because when you're a publisher, you have a pool of thousands of developers. When publishers try to advertise making hyper-casual games to developers, they say it has a low barrier of entry. What they don't tell you is that low barrier of entry has caused a lot more developers to jump on the hyper-casual bandwagon, and the competition is very fierce. And so when you're a publisher, you have thousands of game development studios at your disposal. And I think I read somewhere that any good publisher tests a couple thousand prototypes each month, and they only have a hit every couple months or so. And so, statistically speaking, it doesn't make sense for an individual developer to make hyper-casual games. A publisher, on the other hand, will make a hit or two every couple months. It's almost guaranteed because they have so many developers. But if you're a developer and you want to succeed, it just isn't possible. Like, statistically speaking, of course, we have successful hyper-casual developers, but it's not. A lot of the time, it's not repeatable success for the developers, because it's basically random at this point. And so, the publishers are always encouraging you to try new ideas and come up with different prototypes, and I don't blame them for that. That's how their business works. But from the viewpoint of a developer, it just doesn't make sense to stay in this market. It's only profitable for the publishers. And so that was my second reason. The third reason why I should make the move to hybrid casual is that because of the added layers of meta and gameplay on top of the core hyper casual loop, hybrid casual games tend to have a higher profit margin, and they tend to generate more revenue, and they generate that revenue over a longer period of time compared to hyper-casual games. Because hyper-casual games, as we tend to see, stay in the top charts, especially more recently, for a very short amount of time. That's not the case with hybrid-casual games. No matter where they are in the charts, they engage users for a longer time, and they make more money off of their users. And so it's both a safer bet for the developers, and it can be more lucrative. And I think it's more profitable for the developer, and it's not just the publisher's game, And we, as a hyper-casual game studio, it was a very hard transition for us as well. But we have seen such potential in this market that we have dedicated all our energy and focus to it. And the areas which were more interesting for us were that hybrid casual games require a lot more game design and require a lot more meta and balancing. Those were amazing things for us to learn. Hybrid casual games also require a lot more polish. It's going to make more time, And that's basically what the market has come to. The games are, you can no longer make trash, make money off of it. Your game has to be polished. And one funny thing is that I used to work remotely, and because making hybrid casual games was so demanding, we actually got an office and started working in an office. And all in all, making hybrid casual games has been an awesome experience so far. And if there are any hybrid casual developers listening, no matter what your decision might be in the future, I wish you all the best. And to everybody watching, I thank you all for taking the time to listen to me. I have been Sahand Malaei from Dropout Games. Thanks and goodbye.